vast majority of people who deal with substance issues, who deal with coping mechanisms that are extreme, obsessive or compulsive behavior patterns, are existing inside of this fear-based state, meaning that fear is the predominant emotion that's in their system. Because I'm not afraid of the thing that's happening out there. I'm afraid of the emotion that's going to come up inside of me because of the thing that's happening out there. I can't fight my way out of this because I'm too small, and I can't run away because I'm too weak.
Fear to me is like I have a real issue with fear. It's my one thing that I just, if it comes from anxiety, I've done a lot of work just to make sure that I don't try and sit in a fear generated space. But I thought maybe you could speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I say to pretty much everybody, if you come to some of the groups that I do, the meetings that I facilitate online each week, we're often talking about fear because, in my opinion, the vast majority of people who struggle with any kind of behavior change, even if it's like I'm trying to implement a new healthy lifestyle of exercise and diet, right? When you're not dealing with these addictive or compulsive coping mechanisms, you're just trying to change behavior. As soon as we start to put those things in place, our system goes into what I call a fear-based state. So the vast majority of people who deal with substance issues, who deal with coping mechanisms that are extreme, obsessive or compulsive behavior patterns, are existing inside of this fear-based state, meaning that fear is the predominant emotion that's in their system. So I'm afraid of, and people think that they're afraid of the thing that's happening out there. But generally what I find in the conversations that I have and the work that I've done with myself is I'm not afraid of the thing that's happening out there. I'm afraid of the emotion that's going to come up inside of me because of the thing that's happening out there. So if I'm going into a social circumstance, let's say, and I've got a fear that when I go into that social circumstance, somebody's going to ask me a question that's going to activate shame in my system.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of the shame that I will experience. So I'm going to avoid that circumstance in whatever way I can. So just learning that fundamentally underneath the surface, it's fear of emotion that most people sit in.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I can think right now that you say that, where I can see that in my own life, and honestly, like where I actually sit in a fear generated emotion or decision making, fear generated, as opposed to like, oh, okay, well, let's just sit in this first and figure out what my belief is on this. Because I mean, for me, I think I'm very, very impulsive, and I've always been very impulsive. So it's very easy for me just to sit in something and then go boom, knee jerk, and just react. It's taken me a long time to really sit with something that somebody says, process it, respond back without either trying to like dominate the conversation or fix it or interject or, God forbid, interrupt, because I interrupted people my entire life. Maybe that's more the ADHD part of my brain that just has to get in there.
ADHD is a fear response too, though, Chuck, in my opinion.
Okay, go with that one, because I mean that's a great topic.
Yeah. So a lot of people who okay, so this means talking a little bit about the fight or flight system. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's actually really important to understand the fight or flight system when you're trying to work with these kind of things, particularly when you're trying to work with a fear-based state. So when fear kicks in, your system, and you go outside of that window of tolerance that we talked about in the first conversation, your system will go into a state of fight or flight. It's like a primal response to what's happening in the environment, the fear that's in your system. And you basically go into 5 different reactions. Okay. The first is fight or overcompensation. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to fight your way out of things. Predominantly it does, but you can be overcompensatory in the way of humor. So trying to be overly funny all the time, just you're overcompensating in the environment, trying to cope with the fear that's in your system. The second way is flight. So I'm going to run away. I'm going to hide. I'm not going to go to work. I'm going to avoid that conversation. I'm not going to school. I'm going to stay in bed all day because I don't want to go outside. That's that flight response for the fear that's in your system. Now, as children, so those 2, fight or flight, are the primary responses that most people will turn to. They are the first thing that we go to. So I'm either going to fight my way out of this or I'm going to run away from it. As children, though, those 2 are not often available, because I can't fight my way out of this because I'm too small, and I can't run away because I'm too weak. So, I can't take care of myself. So if those 2 are not available, then we fall into the other 3. The first of those 3 is to freeze. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to just sit here and hope that everything passes me by. I'm not going to make a decision. I'm just going to completely just kind of like a deer in the headlights, kind of staring at everything. Okay. The second one is to submit, which is I'm going to give in to whatever the external narrative or internal narrative is. So if I'm being told something that's activating fear in my system by somebody outside, I'm going to submit to what it is that they're asking me to do in order to try to cope with the fear. Or I'm going to submit to my internal narrative that's telling me you're a loser and you have to stay in bed all day. And then I kind of submit to that and go into avoidance. The fifth one, inside of that is distract. So if you think about it in a child's environment, if things are fearful, so my needs are not being met, I'm not able to express myself, I don't feel like I belong, there's arguing, there's all sorts of stuff going on in the environment. So the environment is no longer safe, whether that's real or just a child's perception. Now there's fear in their system. Well, I can't fight my way out of this because I'm too little, and I can't run away because I'm too weak. So I'm just going to distract the crap out of myself so that I don't have to face the fear in my system. So now as an adult, I've learned this behavior as coping with fear when it comes up for me. I don't want to face the fear, so I just distract. So people who exist in this fear-based state get diagnosed with ADHD. And it's a physiological response, which there are a number, which I'd love to talk about, a number of different physiological responses that come up as a result of being in that fight or flight state.
Now, you just said so much there that I just like, wow, like I'm sitting with right now. I'm trying to process now as far as carrying the conversation forward. Obviously, even on the ADHD side, we'll come back to that one as well, because obviously that's a point into itself as well. How do you sit inside fear when your nervous system goes into fight or flight? Immediately you have amygdala hijack, boom, you're into that fear state mode. I'm not reasonable in that mode, nor am I approachable in that mode. You can't come up to me. It's like sneaking up to me if I'm sleeping and then waking me up. It's that's how my body is geared right away for fear. So I guess my question is, how do I sit inside of fear and then catch that, or be able to identify the emotion or the feeling that I'm in it to change it in the first place?
Yeah, I'll speak about it in terms of what Marsha Linehan taught me. So Marsha Linehan she didn't teach me personally, but through her teachings, she's the creator of dialectical behavior therapy. So in DBT, when we start talking about working with any emotion, but particularly fear, we want to practice. And when you think you've practiced enough, practice some more. Basically what I'm talking about there is we have to practice things like mindfulness. We have to practice things like distress tolerance. We have to practice things like emotion regulation skills over and over and over again, because when your system goes into a fear-based state, you go to automatic coping mechanisms, because one of the physiological responses that happens in your system when it goes into that state of fear is that it shuts down your prefrontal cortex. So when your prefrontal cortex isn't working, because you don't need to think things through rationally and logically, this is the part of your brain that's responsible for executive function. So, impulse control, emotion regulation, urge control, like, trying to be able to think things through rationally and logically, questioning, Socratic questioning or critical thinking in your thought process, right? So that part of your brain's not working. So you go into an automatic primal response that is strongly related to your childhood behavior. So whatever you learned to do when you were a child, you're going to do when you go into this state of fight or flight. This is why people respond in aggression and anger, or they start, they just run away and hide and stay in bed all day, or whatever that primal response is what you'll go to. So from a therapy perspective or a therapeutic perspective, we have to practice. And when you think you've practiced enough, practice some more, the different skills that are going to work for you, so that they start to become habit. If they don't start to become habit, you are always going to go back into those old ways of coping every single time you get activated like that. Wow. So that's why therapy is such hard work, because you have to start practicing these things.
I think therapy is the easy part. It's practicing the therapy that's the hard work.
Hey guys, first of all, I want to thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed the content. This particular chat was filmed as a part of the podcast series to support my good friend, Chuck Basti, and all the work he does as a mental health advocate at Chuck's World of Infinite Mojo. If you want to see the full podcast or just see more of what Chuck does on his social media platform, check out his YouTube channel that's linked in the description below. When it comes to what's going on here, I am on a serious mission to make this platform profitable. Why? Because when I do, I am committed to making sure that every single penny of profit that's made from this YouTube channel goes back into serving the community that needs it most. So, as always, please like this video, leave a comment below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel to get all the latest content available right here at The Liberation Place. Come join us for our live online conversations every week. I'll put all the links in the description below, and let's get the word out there about living the life you want to live, not staying stuck in the life you're currently stuck in. Hopefully, see you soon.